Alright, so this is going to be another movie review. This one's called Deliverance, 1972. This is going to be a John Boorman flick. I'm a big fan of John Boorman. I loved a few of his movies. And the ones that I really loved are Excalibur, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which gets panned as one of the worst movies of all time, certainly one of the worst sequels of all time. I thought it was so weird, and I really had a crush on Linda Blair when I was a teenager, so love that one. It's one of those so bad that it's good type movies. And then there's Zardoz, another one that is just way out there, weird. Sean Connery in diapers. But this one I hated. As much as I loved those three movies, I hated this one. And for two reasons. First of all, it's based on a book written by a communist dude, some redneck from South Carolina who's a poet and an author, and he enjoys reading poetry in front of all these burned out hippies at his South Carolina college. Where he teaches. So the hippies are going like, "Oh, that's good poetry, man." And the whole movie is about Luddite anti-progress kind of thing. Man versus nature, or man overpowering nature when nature is more important than human progress. All that stuff really irritated me. And then after the squeal like a pig scene, the four city slickers decide to hold a democratic vote. To me, democracy is actually mob rule. That kind of ticked me off. The politically correct aspects of this movie. Well, it did tick me off very much. Not kinda. And ruined the whole movie for me, basically. Vilmos, the Hungarian immigrant, does the cinematography, and it's all nature stuff. I'm not interested in that. But if you're an environmentalist or a nature buff too, you'd probably hate this movie as well, because it's got the squeal like a pig scene, which is rather offensive. And sure, it sets the course of the rest of the movie, but there's no real plot in this movie, and no hero really. So it's rather pointless to me, this entire movie. And, watching the bonus features pretty much has all the main scenes from the movie, so you get the gist of it by watching the special features first, as I did. Yeah, it's rated R. It's controversial. It's a lot of people walked out of the movie theater, but it got a lot of ticket sales based on the controversy. So I guess it worked in that sense. Somewhat of an exploitation movie, I guess. And it's definitely low budget. But the themes and the plot, the lack of plot, just really irritated me to no end. Shall we get into the story now? Four city slickers, including Burt Reynolds, John Voight, who was great in Runaway Train, Ned Beatty, and some other guy who does the dueling banjos. I used to hear that dueling banjos incessantly when I was a kid growing up in the 70s leading up to the bicentennial, 1976. It was ubiquitous dueling banjos at that time. When I was about 2 years old to when I was about 6. And so they arrived in this Georgian Appalachian hick town with all these hillbillies. And there's this kid, he's got some kind of genetic deformity, presumably from inbreeding. They never really say in the movie, but probably from a child bride, close cousin or something. And he starts going off the banjo. The other guy's trying to duel with him on his acoustic guitar. And you have the all familiar dueling banjos at the beginning, which is probably why people say this is the greatest movie of all time, just for that one scene. And it did bring back some memories, but now that I come to think of it, it just reminds me how silly the whole 1970s were. There were some good things and some bad things, I guess. It was sort of a mixed bag, but for the most part, it was just silly. And so they find some dude who agrees to drive them down to the river for $40. They're going to go canoeing down the rapids, which is like a suicide mission. And Burt Reynolds got his crossbow. He's sort of the leader of the group. But then he breaks his leg later on, and John Voight becomes the leader. So they go further and further down the river. They bump into these two hillbillies who are hunting, I guess. And they get all nervous like they're going to kill them for finding out about some unknown distillery where they're brewing the moonshine in the black market over there in Hicktown, Georgia. And instead, the guy tells Ned Beatty squeal like a pig while he's raping him in the doo-doo walls. And that's the controversial scene that I mentioned earlier in a nutshell. Tells him to drop his pants, and he starts doing his squealing routine. Squeal like a pig, boy. Eee! That kind of thing. You get the picture. And Ned Beatty's all muddied up and walking around bow-legged. And Burt Reynolds shoots the rapist dude through the torso. He dies. He's laying there on the tree. They decide to have a democratic vote, quote unquote, to decide whether they're going to bury the dude and cover him up, quite literally cover up the killing, because they're worried that the Hick jury is going to convict them of murder. So they do the dirty business, no pun intended, and then they're going down the river. Presumably the guitar playing dude who was doing the dueling banjos, he gets shot, presumably. Can't really tell. It looks like he deliberately falls off the boat. It's totally ridiculous. And he's not wearing a life jacket. So they find him down the stream later on, all washed up dead with his arm behind his head, all twisted around. It was a neat trick that the actor could actually do with his arm. And, John Boorman thought it was cool to use that in the movie. But before that, they go down some pretty hazardous rapids. Burt Reynolds breaks his leg, and there's some really phony looking bone sticking out of his leg. I think it was a lamb bone or something that he just glued on there. And another ridiculous prop by John Boorman. He did that in Excalibur, but it was actually quite amusing when the knight is having sex with Guinevere or whatever her name is, and the knight has his full armor on the whole time. So John Boorman has this kind of reputation for doing ridiculous, outlandish things, like putting Sean Connery in diapers, for instance. And it shows in this movie also. But getting back to the story, so John Voight decides he's going to take his crossbow and shoot the dude. But he was kind of shaking earlier in the movie when he was trying to shoot a deer. Couldn't even shoot straight because he's like a scaredy cat. So it happens again when he tries to shoot the mountain man dude, but somehow he shoots him through the torso again, just like Burt Reynolds. And the dude finally keels over after shooting his gun in the ground like the A-Team. So they're kind of stranded there on the gorge with Burt Reynolds just laying there in pain. He's been laying there for a day, his leg all messed up. They pull in a split. They stick the guitar dude and the hillbilly with the missing front teeth or the false front teeth. They stick him in the river. It's unclear if he's just some random hillbilly or he's the actual co-conspirator of the rape scene. But John Voight is able to remove his two front teeth. So we guess that it is the culprit dude. But again, it's left open to interpretation later because John Voight tells Ned Beatty to confirm that it's him later on. As the rope breaks, John Voight's climbing down the rope, but he's got this hillbilly hanging on there, the one with the false teeth. And the rope breaks, and both their bodies go in the rapids. And then the hillbilly's body just washes up right in front of him. And that's how he's able to get Ned Beatty to identify him. But we don't ever know if Ned Beatty identifies him because that's when the scene cuts, when John Voight asks him that question. He never answers. It cuts to another scene. So that part was a little confusing. Well, the whole movie was confusing. And just frustrated me to no end. The whole nature versus man theme, the democracy BS. But they make it downstream. The metal canoe washes up. Burt Reynolds wanted John Voight and the guitar dude to be in the wooden one. And so Burt Reynolds was really stoked when John Voight agreed to be in the wooden one. The metal one was way better. You'd crash on rocks and stuff. No problem. So they make it back. The three guys. Burt Reynolds kind of passed out from the pain, I guess. And he doesn't remember anything. So they finally make it back. The sheriff is actually the writer of the book, which I do not care to read any time in my life. And he's actually not a bad actor, but he started ticking off the actors when he was telling them how to act and stuff on the set. So John Boorman kicked him off the set for months, presumably, and came back, did some of the end scenes where he suspects the three guys of murdering some Hicks brother-in-law, but he doesn't have any evidence, so he can't do anything. He just tells them never to come back, and that's the end of it. Lame movie. I hated all of the characters in this one. I hated the theme. I hated the democracy. The dueling banjos kind of brought back memories for me because I hadn't heard that since I was a kid, and I was like, even a few months ago, I was like, I had that dueling banjos stuck in my head from my preschool days, and I was wondering whatever happened to that song. How do I find it? So I found it by accident by watching this movie, believe it or not. And I really hated this movie. I couldn't, even the dueling banjos couldn't make up for it for me, but people love the dueling banjos. It has like 21 million views or whatever. So that's the reason why most people love this movie, I guess. It's generally considered the best scene, but even that couldn't save it for me, and it had no really significant value to me other than it had been stuck in my head and I didn't know where it came from until now. So that's the end of my review. I got another movie here. It's called well, let's see. I'm gonna try to finish this one today. And it's an IFC film. Looks pretty good. Well, I'll let you know how that turns out. And, might even have time to do one more if I'm cooking my chicken, waiting for it to cook all the way through, like 30, 40 minutes or something. Try to watch one more after that. And next week I should be in good shape to watch a handful. We'll see, but I'm going to volunteer for the church festival. I'm going to be in the bakery area Friday night and Saturday night, but on the other hand, I get to sleep in because I took PTO for my part-time job, a couple full times, 16-hour days on my part-time job. That makes sense, but yeah, try to get in one or two later today, hopefully 5 next week. And, keep plugging away, get these in later.